Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. As Europe faces growing pressure on democratic values, the Council of Europe is hosting a vital conference in Warsaw, Poland on April 22nd to 23rd, 2025, exploring civil society's role in defending the rule of law. From legal education to media freedom, the event tackles both opportunity and adversity. But with participants like Turkey and Azerbaijan, nations criticized for human rights abuses, serious questions remain. Today we speak with Deputy Secretary General Bjørn Berge to unpack the challenges and the Council's vision moving forward. Welcome to TVP World, and thank you very much for taking the time, sir.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Pleasure to have you. So tell us a little bit about what we're expecting from the conference, over the next 2 days.
I think it's a very important occasion, and we're doing this, of course, in close cooperation with the Polish EU presidency and Minister of Justice Adam Bodnar. And of course, the rule of law. There are many challenges to rule of law in Europe today. And therefore, there is a need that we come together and discuss it. And there is a particular focus on the role of civil society, which I think is also important.
To tell us more about both, let's start with the rule of law. Can you give us some examples of the challenges to the rule of law that you can be looking at over the next 2 days?
Yes, indeed. I think, first of all, we see a fundamental challenge when it comes to the democracies in Europe and elsewhere today. And one component of a thriving democracy, a strong democracy, is of course the respect for rule of law. And when it comes to the rule of law, there are some fundamental challenges out there. We see in some European countries that the courts are not as independent as they should be. At the same time, we still struggle with corruption throughout Europe. So this is not a good mix when it comes to upholding the true independence of courts and judicial procedures. So this is something we are working on. And of course, to tackle this issue and also the broader issue of democratic backsliding, as we see trends in Europe today, we need to mobilize all good forces. And civil society is certainly one of them.
Understood. I want to come to civil society in just a second. But one last question about the rule of law. I mean, have you noticed that across Europe, the framework, if you like, for the fair application of law is weakening, has been weakening over time? Or is this something that's always existed and it's just now that you're coming to address it?
I think we have seen a trend right now where it's getting more and more serious. And this is linked to what I already said, to the overall weakening of the democracies in Europe. So it's a trend that we need to address now. Today, we also see other challenges to a strong democracy. We see that journalists today are even arrested, harassed, even killed in Europe today. We see that civil society is struggling in many countries through different types of initiatives where they try to curtail their funding, the introduction of different types of legislation characterizing different civil society organizations as foreign agents. We see also the level of disinformation, fake news, lies that are also hurting the democratic processes and our democracies in Europe today, because it's polluting the minds of people. This is really an important issue.
Understood.
And, yeah.
So tell us about the mechanisms that exist to start to kind of turn the ship in the right direction.
What we have done now in the Council of Europe, and the Council of Europe has all European countries, 46 European countries as members. And what we try to do, with the exception, by the way, of the Russian Federation and Belarus, what we are trying to do now is to reach out and invite all the governments, academics, civil society, researchers, research foundations, other international organizations, to a discussion how we can together revitalize democracy today. Because democracy is certainly not perfect. And just look at some young people today. If you talk to young people today, first of all, they are quite disillusioned with the political institutions. And they feel that they are not actually delivering what they expected. And there was a survey in the Netherlands asking young people born after year 2000, how important is it for you to live in a democracy? And 1 out of 3 said it was important. 1 out of 3. Mm. So how is Europe going to look like? I don't think it's unique for the Netherlands. I'm from Norway, and you are from Poland. Maybe you will have somewhat of the same similar responses from young people in other countries in Europe today.
Yes,
yeah.
Sorry, please can you finish?
No, so I think, and I don't think it's because they want a Putin-style government or they want the Chinese model. I think it's because they don't know really. They are not familiar enough. They don't understand how important democracy is today in protecting the fundamental rights of you and me.
So you believe this to be actually quite a cultural shift, because it doesn't change that dramatically, does it, without some kind of underlying shift in the ways of thinking and acting in civil society?
I think it's a broad trend. It's something that has come with a stronger force over the last 10, 15 years. And you can add to it also that there are some political forces today questioning the system that we have built up since the Second World War. The UN Charter, the role of international institutions. You know, is this old-fashioned? Do we really need them today? And for Europe, it's the European Convention of Human Rights. It's a fundamental, it's the Constitution of Europe. But people are not aware. This is the challenge, I think.
Is it a question of awareness, or is it a question of application of the frameworks that already exist?
I think it's a question of a lack of awareness. So that's why we want to have this broad discussion. And we want to reach out to all the good forces we can, and other international institutions, as I said, civil society, students, young people. I think it's so essential now to reach out to young people.
To get the message out.
And also, maybe there are ways also that we can revitalize democracy. Huh? Maybe there's also room in this dialogue how we can innovate and make democracy even more relevant than it is today.
Right. Now, you mentioned 46 member states in the Council, but I mean, some of them perhaps have a questionable record on democracy and human rights. How do they, or what would you like to see countries like, let's say, Turkey, for example, contribute to the conversation? And do you think there's an opportunity for the message to go in the other direction as well?
I think this is also an essential point, that we want everybody to contribute to this dialogue. Yeah? Also those who may not agree to everything, yeah? and have a different point of view. And of course we have a diversity in Europe, but we also want to reach out beyond Europe to other countries outside Europe and invite them to this dialogue, because it's not only Europe who is facing this challenge when it comes to the backsliding of democracy. It's the global phenomena. So we need to have this broader dialogue and discussion going beyond Europe.
But what makes you believe that countries in, let's say, Africa or Asia would listen to these conversations and say, well, you know, we're in a different environment, we live according to different rules. What you're talking about is okay for Europe, but not for us. What would you say to them?
I think democracy is such a fundamental way of organizing a society. And the basis for democracy is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And all countries of the world have signed up to that. So it's relevant far beyond Europe. And that's why we need also to engage all the different type of voices in this dialogue. To get also, maybe we can learn, we can learn from each other. Through a dialogue and also with different perspectives, you learn and you gain. So I think this is also an important aspect of it.
What would you like to see at the end of the 2 days?
I would like to see a recommitment to the rule of law in Europe, and also that we are able to appreciate the really vital role of civil society, be it ombudspersons, institutions, be it national human rights institutions, be in youth groups, being women organizations, all the multitude of different types of civil society organizations. But in particular, I feel strongly about engaging the youth.
And where would the funding come from for this exercise?
I think that's the funding will be partially by the Council of Europe and partially also by the partners that we have. We have so many friends, so many partners, so many different types of networks and institutions, other international organizations, as I said, who's also putting this high on the agenda. So this is the way we can work together and also co-fund many of these activities.
Is there going to be a monitoring structure in place to see whether there's backsliding or whether the organizations that are receiving this funding are actually moving in the direction that they initially said they would?
Today in Europe, we have a fantastic system of protecting fundamental human rights. We have the European Convention on Human Rights, which is the Constitution of Europe. We have a monitoring system, where experts is traveling to all the European countries and looking into to the extent that the government actually is following up on what they have committed themselves to. And they are writing reports and giving them recommendations. We have also a set of programs and projects. So we offer also assistance to those countries who need to reform their legislation. But on top of this is the European Court of Human Rights. And that is the last resort of appeal for any European. And it's obligatory for the governments to execute the judgment of the European Court of Human Rights. And you will not find anywhere else in this world, the same type of a system, the same level of protection as we do have in Europe.
Well, we wish you every success over the next 2 days, Mr. Berge. Thank you very much for taking some time away to come and talk to us.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that's all from us in this episode of World Talks. Goodbye.